To Thuney or not to Thuney, that is the left tackle. To Thuney sounds like Kingsley's cousin, but we have an interesting article here from Sports Illustrated titled Andy Reid Praises Joe Thuney After Start at Left Tackle, Battled His Heart Out. Stepping in for the injured DJ Humphries, Joe Thuney handled a seemingly impossible task in the Kansas City Chiefs win over the Cleveland Browns, written by Jordan Foote. I have annotated this article and I want to go through it now. My added comments are highlighted in yellow here because I will be speaking, obviously, all of these words, so just to denote what the difference is here. The article begins, oftentimes, football is a game of adjusting to whatever cards you're dealt. Despite boasting a sparkling 13-1 record on the year, the Kansas City Chiefs know that more than just about any NFL club. Sorry, I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Andy Reid's team has responded to multiple forms of adversity, primarily in the form of injuries in its title defense campaign. Second consecutive title defense campaign, but whatever. So, for all of the BS that has been levied against the Kansas City Chiefs this season, they really have not gotten the credit that they rightfully deserve for dealing with the injuries, with dealing with a second straight season, starting the year with the shortest offseason of anyone. The BS that goes into the core of your team having no reason to be focused on football because they all have rings. What about the fact that they have to deal with the compounded interest of drafting late in every round yet again? 9 consecutive AFC West championships, gone to 6 consecutive AFC championships, 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl wins. All of these things push you later and later in the draft order, later and later in the waiver wire. All of these things have a compounding effect that should have been hitting the Kansas City Chiefs a long time ago. And with the subject of this video, we rightfully have to observe that, a little bit, those things are having an effect. Left tackles are taken in the top 15 if there's one that can start day one. They just are, guys. They don't get out. It is one of the better scouted positions. It is one of the positions that teams are willing to take a flyer on regardless. Because, hey, let's say you really think prospect X has a future at left tackle. You think he can start week 1, day 1, snap 1 at left tackle for your franchise. Well, maybe you get him into camp and you start to realize that's not true. Worst case scenario, if you thought a guy could play left tackle, probably he can play offensive guard. So if there is any chance at all that a player can be a left tackle, they don't get to number 32 overall. The article continues, Sunday's game against the Cleveland Browns saw Kansas City do it yet again. With left tackle DJ Humphries out of the lineup due to a hamstring injury, left guard Joe Thuney got kicked over a spot and had Mike Caliendo take his place. It wasn't for a run-of-the-mill assignment either, as reigning Defensive Player of the Year and King of the Helmet Swingers, Myles Garrett waited on the other side of the line. Now, here's the interesting thing to me. With 3 games left to play this season, I'm not particularly sure that DJ Humphries is the left tackle. Would DJ Humphries, answer this yourself because I'm not sure, would DJ Humphries have done as well against Myles Garrett as did Joe Thuney? Joe Thuney had a rough day at the office, but so does everyone who plays face-to-face against Myles Garrett. Joe Thuney may have given him the old middle finger in the eye, but lots of players have been tempted to do that to Myles Garrett, the Steelers notably. But here's the thing. I don't know if we're going to see DJ Humphries come in and immediately resume left tackle play. The big question is Mike Caliendo a bigger risk to the offense at left guard than Joe Thuney is at left tackle? Is DJ Humphries that much better at left tackle than Mike Caliendo is at left guard? When you are weighing these prospects, because here's what you don't want to do. DJ Humphries comes back, and all of a sudden he's the starting left tackle again. Well, Joe Thuney was just getting warmed up out there, getting his feet under him, figuring out, I forgot this whole kick step thing. Then you have him take a couple weeks off when he was improving at the position, only for DJ Humphries' hamstring to tighten up again. DJ Humphries is not a young guy. DJ Humphries, I'm pretty sure, is older than Joe Thuney. How many teams in the league have a Myles Garrett that will line up at their right defensive end position? There's only one Myles Garrett. Now, there are other players that have strengths different than Myles Garrett, for sure, but you would have a hard time convincing me that there is a much worse draw of cards in your first week in the NFL, starting at left tackle in quite some time, than Myles Garrett. And he did okay. Patrick Mahomes was sacked a grand total of 0 times, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. The article continues, although Thuney wasn't perfect in Week 15, he was good enough to help the Chiefs bring home the win. In his post-game press conference, head coach Andy Reid tipped his cap to the 32-year-old for a job well done. Maybe DJ Humphries is younger. I believe DJ Humphries is 31. Quote, I thought Thuney asked to play left tackle. He hadn't done that since college. Got out there and really battled and did a nice job against one of the best defensive ends in the game right now. He battled his heart out, end quote. Thuney did have some experience at left tackle, albeit seemingly not enough to be ready for a player like Garrett. Prior to Sunday, the All-Pro had racked up 88 career snaps there, according to Pro Football Focus. All but one of those were as a member of the Chiefs, with 55 coming in the 2021 season, 25 coming last season, and 7 in late-game relief of Wanya Morris a few weeks ago. All things considered, this was a huge ask, even for a consistently excellent player. One thing that is a shame here is that neither Morris nor Suamataia got more reps at guard in the preseason. We eventually saw Morris play a little bit of offensive guard, a little bit of left guard, indeed, while Joe Thuney was out with injury and Kingsley Suamataia looked as if he were going to be the starting left tackle. Neither of those things panned out. It is a shame that neither of those players is able to contribute as a guard, because the two of them sitting on the sideline with Joe Thuney playing left tackle is not nearly the indictment on their abilities as is the fact that Mike Caliendo is the guy taking reps at left guard during all of this. Mike Caliendo, undrafted out of Central Michigan, absolutely. Now, this might sound harsh. Absolutely shameful that your second and third round left tackles cannot fill in at left guard while your left guard is playing their position. I have been an apologist for both Suamataia and Wanya Morris during this entire process. I do think that both of them have certainly tackle potential. I think that Suamataia has more left tackle potential than does Wanya Morris. So far, there's no reason for me to believe that if we're just going based on what we see on the field. So, is this going to be one of those cases where Mike Caliendo's contract is up after the season? He's just signed a 1-year deal. Joe Thuney, I think everyone hopes he gets to return to left guard. So are these reps, Joe Thuney playing left tackle, Mike Caliendo playing left guard, just being wasted as far as player development is concerned? That is something that is troubling. The Kansas City Chiefs this season have not gotten very many reps out of their rookie class outside of Xavier Worthy. And Xavier Worthy has not had the production that many of us had hoped he would have garnered by this point in the season, though I think he's certainly contributing in ways outside of catching or running the football, taking the top off the defense, etc. But the fact that Kingsley Suamataia is not even a candidate for backup left guard is startling. I think that there is some, and we will get to this in a moment as well, some possibility that the reason that Wanya Morris is not out there at left guard is the fact that he does have an injury. But Kingsley does not. The article continues, to say Thuney held his own would be hitting the nail on the head. While Patrick Mahomes did get hit plenty, including one that saw him suffer an ankle injury, Week 15 was the first game he didn't get sacked in nearly 2 months. He'd been taken down 3 or more times in 3 consecutive contests heading into Sunday. I believe he was sacked 13 times in those 3 weeks. Hit but not sacked, scrambled but not tumbled. This is a return to the type of football that Mahomes entered the NFL playing. Remember, the interior of the line of the early Mahomes era was shaky. That was what I had at that time referred to as roster rot. They just did not have the picks. They did not have the quality picks to end up replacing all of the pieces on their roster. And in addition to that, both of his tackles, Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher, they were better than the tackles that Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher were better than the tackles with whom Patrick Mahomes is currently playing. But Eric Fisher was not elite. And Mitchell Schwartz was an elite right tackle, but he never played left tackle. So it's not like Patrick Mahomes had the greatest offensive line in the history of the NFL prior to this season. Patrick Mahomes is used to running around. Patrick Mahomes seems to revel in running around. Patrick Mahomes, perhaps this is the better way to say it, even Patrick Mahomes cannot defend himself against a blind side rusher that gets a free release, or free enough of a release that we have seen Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia both give up multiple times this season. The article continues, with Morris struggling in recent weeks and Kingsley Suamataia's rookie year going about as poorly as possible, Reed's hands were somewhat tied. Adding in the injury to Humphreys, he decided to give Thuney a shot, and he made the most of it. Now, we'll get back to the prospective injury for Wanya Morris. There's been a lot of chatter about Morris's situation being a knee injury that is not structural, but is something that inhibits his movement. I don't know 100% about what that is. I know we've heard whispers of it, but whatever it is strange to hope that a player is injured. But hopefully that is true, and this is not just Wanya Morris being benched and leaving so much to be desired while he is on the field. Hopefully what we are seeing is Hopefully what we are seeing with Wanya Morris is a hobbled Morris and not a humbled Morris, is an injured Morris and not an incompetent Morris. The article continues, well, the injury on DJ and then Joe had taken a couple of snaps there the last week, Reed said. I just felt comfortable with a veteran player. I scouted him as a tackle, so I knew he could get out there and battle. I would like to just take a moment here for it to be observed that playing into all of the misfortune and bad luck, and as Tech9 would say, obstacles that the Kansas City Chiefs have faced this year, it should be fully appreciated that late in the year, the Kansas City Chiefs finally decided to go out there and sign a guy off of the couch to come in and play the position of their biggest weakness. And that guy immediately got injured. This is, of course, in addition to the fact that they signed a guy, Hollywood Brown, to come in and play the position of their biggest weakness last year. And that guy came in and immediately got injured. This team has dealt with insane levels of muckery during this 13-1 run. This is not a team that is coasting into the playoffs. That should be appreciated. The article continues, according to Next Gen Stats, Thuney was matched up against Garrett on 24 of his rushes and surrendered 6 pressures. The elite defensive end had a total of 8 pressures on the afternoon, but a handful of those were inevitable. On tape, Thuney had numerous reps where he set a quality anchor or moved well to adapt when Garrett lined up wider than most pass rushers. One thing that should be noted going forward, look, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson for the Texans are very good. They are very good as well. They are 2 of the better players on the Texans, but they aren't Myles Garrett, and neither do they have the tools that Myles Garrett has. That is a different test altogether. Myles Garrett isn't just good at the sport of football. Myles Garrett is good at the sport of football while apparently being crafted to play the position of edge. The article continues. The end result was a passable performance in a 14-point win for the champs. It's unclear whether Humphreys will be available for Saturday's game against the Houston Texans, but if not, things could still be much worse than Thuney filling in for another weekend. It was, as the article states, a passable performance. But it was a passable performance against a premier talent. Joe Thuney went out there and, look, here's the thing. From this point forward, I don't think he's going to face anybody as good as Myles Garrett. I don't know, guys, if there's anyone in the NFL as good as Myles Garrett. Maybe I'm missing something obvious that I should have on the top of mind. But Myles, here's a question. You are given $1 million to take a rep against an NFL defensive end. You get to select one player not to have to face. They come to you and they say, hey, we're going to give you $1 million to do this Joe Schmo can't play in the NFL. You're going to line up against a defensive end. We will pick the defensive end, but you get to exclude one edge player in the NFL. Who are you going to exclude? Personally, that would be Myles Garrett. Of all of the scary individuals in the NFL, Myles Garrett's probably the scariest. Joe Thuney got moved out to left tackle and just lined up against Myles Garrett and surrendered 0 sacks. If we went back to Wednesday of last week and I asked you, would you like to have 0 sacks or 100 receiving yards for Xavier, 250 receiving yards for Xavier Worthy, or 0 sacks on the day? Which one will lead more likely to a Kansas City Chiefs victory? 0 sacks or 250 receiving yards for Xavier Worthy? I would say 0 sacks. If I knew heading into that game there would be 0 sacks, I would have bet everything in my bank account that the Kansas City Chiefs would win that game. Everyone, the main talking point, perhaps the only talking point besides Jameis Winston, heading into the Browns game was Myles Garrett. That was it. There was nothing else to talk about. Myles Garrett was productive, but not on the stat sheet. Myles Garrett got to Patrick Mahomes, but not fast enough to bring him down. Any of us would have taken that beforehand. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more Kansas City Chiefs-based content in the future. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.